Well, this is called a Rosicrucian Fellowship Summer School. It's nothing exclusive. In fact, I wish there were schools like this all over the country. And this time, this whole series of talks, all 10 talks, the 5 morning talks and the evening talks, are to get to the most fundamental work of the Rosicrucian Fellowship. And I'm going to try and do this in as simple a way as possible, and I'll try to make everything easily understood. Though with me as obscure as I am, there's no promise in that. I'm going to try to keep all the talks down to just about 1 hour. I have only 4 pages of notes, and a page of notes usually lasts about 15 minutes. The talk today will be very broad and very general, and it'll move very fast because so much ground has to be covered. And the purpose of this talk this evening is to locate what our work, we as Rosicrucian aspirants, what our work is in the big picture of things, in the grand scheme of our solar cosmos, to find out where we are and what our work is. The succeeding talks will try to be very clear about how to accomplish this and what this all means. The Rosicrucian Fellowship is a spiritual service organization. The intent of the Rosicrucian Fellowship is to serve the Universal Spirit and to serve all of the foci of that Universal Spirit in our evolutionary wave. That is, to serve all of humanity. The Rosicrucian Fellowship is exoteric. It's ordinary people like you and I. And the origin of the Rosicrucian Fellowship is the Rosicrucian Order. And the Rosicrucian Order is a consortium of adepts. You might even call them demigods, who are very highly evolved and probably more evolved above us than we are above a turtle or something like that. The Rosicrucian Order is a inner world organization. In order to be a member of the Rosicrucian Order, you have to be able to consciously leave your body and function in your soul body and go to the temple, which is an inward temple, an inner space. The Rosicrucian Order is the source of the philosophy of the Rosicrucian Fellowship. It is very Western. It is Western in that it is developed through many seers for many rebirths, investigating the spiritual worlds and cross-checking with each other and understanding the principles and corroborating each other and then coming out with a philosophy for that. And the Rosicrucian Order is also very Christian. Not in the sense strictly of Jesus, but of the cosmic being Christ. And we try to live in harmony with that truth, though I do not think there is anywhere in the world right now that there is a true Christian religion. And it's not because of the fault of Christ, it's because of the imperfections and undevelopment of human beings. The Rosicrucian philosophy is an evolutionary philosophy. And it's about the evolutionary creation in which we are fortunate enough to participate. When we say it's an evolutionary philosophy, it means several things. First, it means that the divine creation in which we are fortunate enough to participate has an evolutionary scheme. It has a skeleton. It has definite objectives. It has definite principles and work that it is to accomplish. The scheme is designed to project into becoming beings things from great spiritual beings, projecting potentials into beings and then bringing them out, and in the process those beings cast off what has been projected into them, and they themselves become creative beings. And so it is an ongoing creation, and everything participating in it becomes a creator. It's an evolutionary philosophy in that everything in it is logical. Everything is timed. Everything is purposeful. It's a creation in that everything participating in it is creating in one way or another. It's not something that's cut and dried. It's live. Everything in the cosmos is alive, and it's sort of like if you live in a daydream world, you sell your soul. And we are alive because the world fights back. And it fights back because everything participating is getting out from itself, and in order to keep up or in order to give to the creation, you have to develop the strength to do so. Now, even though there is a definite scheme, it is not all written out what we are to become. Because it's a creation, it's new. And it's new to every being within the creation, including the universal spirit itself. Robert Frost has a very beautiful line from his poetry. He says, if there are no surprises for the poet, there will be no surprises for the reader. And it's the same thing with the universal spirit. If it isn't new to the universal spirit, it's not going to be new to anyone participating within the universal spirit. It's something analogous to a musical composition. You may have a score that a symphony or some other orchestra plays, and it seems like it's all written out, but each orchestra and each conductor will interpret it differently, and each will bring different things out of it. And if it's a good creation, it even leaves room for spontaneity, for bringing things out of it. And our creative work, our epigenesis, the new things that we offer to the creation are not only new to us, they are new to the universal spirit. Because in that regard, each of us is equal to the one, or to the universal spirit, because we can all creatively add something new. Of course, our novelty at this point is very small, very little, but we'll get there. But now I'm lost in my notes. Because of the creativity and the orderliness of it, it is not only like art, it's also like science. There is experiment, there is discovery, and for people like ourselves who are in the dark, there is a lot of trial and error. And we grow up that way. What is given to us is a skeleton, and the way we live our lives hopefully living it consciously, we flesh out that skeleton. And this is our work, is to live creative lives, to live organized scientific lives. It's, in another sense, it's evolutionary, in that the whole process itself evolves on itself. It's something, they have a notion in computer science of having recursive programming. In fact, the nerdy types that are computer programmers, which I was at one time, have a statement that says, "To iterate is human, to recurse is divine." And it's their joke, but it really is true. If something, the way you develop something, it builds on itself, and it becomes an organic creation in its own right. And that's what the evolutionary creation is like. It's an organization that builds on itself, and it's sort of like writing a poem. You write a poem and you say everything you want it to say, or at least sometimes when you write a poem that happens, and it feels good and it feels right. Then you throw it aside, and in a few months you look back at it, and you see there was much more that you weren't consciously aware of when you wrote that poem in the first place. And it's in the meantime you've learned something more, and out of that same structure of the poem there is more meaning, there is new meaning, and the whole of the creation is of that order. All right, now we're going to try to understand the purpose for all of these talks, and we'll gradually start accelerating as we go along, and by the end I'll be talking as fast as a jazz riff and still not be able to say everything I want to say. That kind of a thing. There is an ancient Oriental statement or maxim or whatever you want to call it, and it goes, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step." The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Obviously, it intends to say that we have to do something. We can't just sit and think and dream about a journey. We have to take the step. Now, in these lectures, we're wanting to do something a little different. So we're going to change that ancient Oriental saying and say it in a little different way. The journey of 1,000 miles is accomplished with the next step. We're already way deeply involved in the creative journey, the evolutionary journey, and we want to progress forward. And we're so much in the dark that we sometimes lose touch with the fact that we really are evolving and that we really are working to some great spiritual purpose. So we're already on the journey. We just need to take the next step forward. The main purpose of the Rosicrucian Fellowship and its philosophy is to help people take the next step. Our purpose, if we are to help what is going on in the world, is to help humanity to take the next step. Obviously, that asks or begs another question. What is the next step? And the next major step for us in evolution is to build the soul body. So our work is to help people take the next step ourselves, and that is to build the soul body. That's the important thing. If you get nothing else out of this all night, that's it. The Rosicrucian Fellowship does exist for other purposes. It acts as a preparatory school for people who are trying to develop to become initiates. That's a very important work. But even the work of initiation, as was just said a few minutes ago, you have to be able to leave your body in waking consciousness and be awake in the inner worlds in order to be initiated into the Rosicrucian order. So taking the next step and being prepared for initiation are one and the same thing. Initiation is a miniature, a microcosm of the scheme of the creative evolution. The major turning points, the major crisis points, the major trials in the evolutionary creation are in the intense way of living that we call initiation, one and the same thing. All of the initiatory trials are trials that all of humanity is going to pass through as it evolves to higher and higher states of consciousness. So, if our next step is entering into the spiritual worlds, we have to be prepared for that, whether we're entering by initiation or when the earth itself dissolves. And we no longer need these heavy bodies. It is time that we're waiting for. After all, the being that we call Christ, that is with us, and as the Bible says, I am with you always, even unto the end of the earth. That being is suffering great limitation to help us take the next step. And so, it behooves us as Christians, or aspiring Christians, because I can't say really that I myself am a Christian, to be ready to follow into the inner worlds. Now, even though we're going to be talking from the Rosicrucian philosophy, which is a very good philosophy, it's not an exclusive philosophy. It's suited for a certain type of people, and it's not suited for everyone. We're going to be sharing a lot of that philosophy, and hopefully the philosophy will point to the reality. Because a spiritual philosophy is only good in that it helps people to understand and experience and test for themselves, see for themselves what the spiritual reality is. We're only sharing. This is not indoctrination or anything like that. Because indoctrination is a form of enslavement. And Christianity and Rosicrucian Christianity are a philosophy of freedom. The next step on the 1,000-mile journey is not part of a forced march. Every step, everything that we do is done in freedom. It would be nice to coast downstream if we could, but if we really want to progress spiritually, if we really want to participate in the spiritual evolution, it's a matter of freedom. Nobody is going to push us. It has to come from within our own being to have the desire to give, to have the desire to do something for the purpose of it all.
Richard?
Yes.
Could you go back a little bit and say why you say you're not a Christian?
A what?
That you're not a Christian?
Because I can't live that. I don't love that much. There are, when I say Christians, that I aspire to be a Christian, but Christian means little Christ. Literally, the word does, and I can't say that I have anything like that. All right. The purpose of the Rosicrucian Fellowship is not to provide extreme spiritual experiences for students. We do seek conscious union with the universal spirit through its focus within our being, and we do seek all kinds of, or all forms of first-hand knowledge, and we do seek to have self-controlled self-consciousness so that we can tune into whatever we need to tune into in the cosmos. But it isn't for our sake. It isn't for our enjoyment. We enjoy it, but it isn't for our own pleasure. We do everything as much as we can if we can purify our souls in the service of the universal spirit. So it's not, the journey of 1,000 miles is not like a parade with parade marshals, or what do they call the people, baton twirlers and things like that. It's not with fancy floats or anything like that. The Rosicrucian Fellowship always seeks to work in harmony with the teachings of Christ. And 2 great commandments were given by the Christ as portrayed in the Gospels. One is, thou shalt love thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, all thy strength, and all thy mind. And the other, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Not like the way you love yourself, but your neighbor is yourself, because the love of Christ is the universal altruistic love that we all share. And the only way that we can get out of egocentricity is to love others as ourselves, because that opens us to a consciousness that is not egocentric. Beyond that, we are given 2 fundamental commandments to actions. 1, we are told to preach the gospel, and 2, we are told to heal the sick. Preaching the gospel is preaching the truth, not merely the 4 initiation formulas that are given in the 4 gospels, but the truth of the spiritual worlds, of the thing that we are all participating in and that we all belong to. We talk a lot about a lot of other things, but we don't talk about the purpose of it all. Another is healing the sick, and healing the sick is a matter of attunement. It is a tonal process. Yes, it works sometimes with sharing ethers with other people and things like that, but it is attunement. And speaking in a very vernacular way, we are clinkers in the cosmic harmony. That is, we are out of tune. We have asserted our free will out of harmony with divine cosmic intent that was agreed upon by all of us ab initio in the creation. So the next step in a march of 1,000 miles is a step that is in harmony. It's like a dance step. It's something that our whole being can joyously participate, knowing that we are with it. The biblical Christ, in some of the parables, talks about the wedding garment. And it says that in order to come to the wedding, which is the alchemical wedding, wherein the divine part of our being, which some people call the higher self, or has many different names, is united with the personality. In order for that to be consummated, one must have the wedding garment. And the golden wedding garment is, in Christian mysticism, another name for the soul body. So when it says that in order to attend the wedding, you have to have the wedding garment or you can't attend. God is not a respecter of persons. And unless we have the stuff such that the Spirit can fully enter into the entire personality and express itself through it, it just can't be done. You can't run a car without gasoline, and you can't come to personal fulfillment unless you have the stuff for the Spirit to come through. This is something that we do voluntarily, and this is something that we do deliberately. The next step on the journey of 1,000 miles is a step that is deliberate. We're watching where we're stepping. Now, whenever something like that is said, you have to put in some kind of statement to put people at ease. This, because you have to have the soul material to proceed forward, because the world is going to dissolve and you're not going to be able to exist in etheric space and express unless you have the soul body prepared. When people hear that, they think they get the eternal damnation and all kinds of things like that. But you and almost everybody you know is going to make that. You can tell how well you're doing in some ways because you leave your body every night when you go to sleep. But you're not always conscious, and to the extent that you can wake up on the other side, to that extent you have developed the soul body so that you can be conscious on the other side. So, until we have that full consciousness, and we can look back at ourselves objectively, both physically, and see what our physical body with all of its limitations looks like. And until we have taken away all those limitations of the way we look at ourselves psychologically and in soul, we're not free people. Now, when we're talking about the soul body, the golden wedding garment, there is no limit to how much gold you can put into it. The more soul that you have, the clearer your consciousness will be. The more you will be able to receive intuitions, because that's where the intuitions play on our consciousness, is on the soul body. You don't even have to be clairvoyant to know that some people are soulful. Some people have attracted and built for themselves a vehicle of light, and when you look at them, you can see light. They're easier to look at. You can see through. It's like looking through a magnifying glass or something like that, because they're so clear. On the other hand, a person who is very selfish and very sensual, especially if they lie, you find yourself almost wanting to rub your eyes because they look like they're dusty or dirty or something. You know what I'm saying? It's like that in the world. All right. Now we have a little bit of an idea of the significance and the importance of taking the next step. And now we can work our way to being more specific about the process. So, what we're going to do now is look at the grand scope of things, and then beginning tomorrow night, we will talk about the ethers themselves, and then Wednesday night we will talk about processes of attracting the ethers into our soul body, and then we'll talk about exercises for organizing them and extracting them so that the soul body can be separated from the physical, and that'll occupy the rest of the week. Now let's look at taking the next step in a cosmographical way. Cosmography is a fancy word for saying the charting and mapping of the cosmos. In our case, we're talking about the spiritual cosmos. not just the stars in the sky. It's just like geography is the mapping of the earth, cosmography is the mapping of the cosmos. Now, this is going to be very brief, and it's going to be very fast. I'll attempt to try and make it experiential, but it's something so big that to get through it in a half an hour's time or 20 minutes time is quite a bit. Just have to be that, just so we have a rough idea. So we want to be general. If you want something specific, I'm spending the rest of my life on a series of talks that goes on every week, or every other week. Tim has been sitting in some of them, and he knows how tedious they are. They're tediously going into all of the little things of the spiritual worlds. A thorough presentation of this kind of material would take many, many talks, and I don't even know if there's enough time in life for me to be able to do that. Having spoken of poetry on this side of the ocean, let's look at some from the other side of the ocean. The clairvoyant poet, who really was a beautiful man, and the proof of his beauty was that his wife was in awe of him. She was astounded. She was absolutely positive that he was the seer that he claimed to be. William Blake, beautiful, beautiful man. He had, with regard to taking the next step of a journey of 1,000 miles, he had a line in one of his poems that's exquisite. It says, "To become a star, you must shine where you are. To become a star, you must shine where you are." So, you can't take a 1,000-mile trip to the top of Mount Fuji and back from any other place than where you're at. Now, some people never get out of their neighborhood. It's all they know. And what they do know of the wide world, they get through maps or books or through reading or movies or television or the internet or something like that. They don't actually get there. They don't see the rest of the world. It's a sad thing, but in reality, in cosmological reality, that is the condition of almost everyone on earth. All we know is this: matter, physical matter, gross, dense physical matter is all we know. For most people, this is all there is. Oh, there are talks of heavens and things like that, but because we're all such materialists, the heavens are conceived of in material terms. We conceive of things with forms like these forms. And that's not the reality. There are different kinds of forms, and there are realities that go beyond the dense physical matter that we are in. I believe this is what Christ Jesus in the Bible was alluding to when he said, "You have eyes, but you see not." So this is where we are, and this is where we begin. Mystics, like the initiates of the Rosicrucian order, usually take this kind of a trip through the cosmos in large and in small. That is, in macrocosm and in microcosm. This is done because the universal spirit is ever present. It's present in the large and small at the same time. And by looking at the large, we understand the small. That's one of the principles of Plato. He was a geometer, and he knew that you got more accurate geometric drawings if you used a large scale. But he was also an initiate, and he knew that by looking to the macrocosm, you saw things in large, and the greater truth was in the universal spirit. And so we have what is called the Hermetic axiom, that the same truth is found in analogy in large and in small and in smaller. It's called the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. What has gone before in heaven will follow after on earth. Know this and rejoice. So, we're going to do the other way around. We're going to reverse it. We're going to begin with where we are, like William Blake. In microcosm, we are in our dense physical bodies. Probably from the moment we take our first cry, which in the physical body has been an indubitable reality to ourselves. Since we already dwell too much on our physical bodies, we'll be very brief about it. Our physical bodies are formations, and those formations are occupied by solids, liquids, and gases. Now, if we want to know how this formation works, how things come and go from the formation, we study things like physics and chemistry and anatomy and physiology and all those other things about the physical body. We don't want to preoccupy ourselves with that, so we'll just pass on from that. Now, the same solids, liquids, and gases that comprise the dense physical body are the same as those that occupy the bodies of plants and animals. They're the mineral stuff. So they are the stuff of the earth. And so the macrocosm is the earth, or you might say wherever the macrocosmic body of God is wherever there is solids, liquids, and gases, so the body of God is strung out mostly through the planets in the heavens. Now, materialistic science teaches that this is all there is to a human, and that this is all there is to reality. They have this idea of empty space that you see in these space movies and things like that, as if God limited itself to just these objects into nothing more. Now, materialistic scientists go to great lengths, they're quite ingenious in their arguments, to say that everything that we experience, emotions, thoughts, ideas, and everything, even the experience of God, is the result of interactions of matter. That's what materialism is. It's believing that everything originates in matter and no other place. Now, it's really ironic how they expect us to believe that thesis as though we were independent, truth-knowing beings. They try to persuade us because they say, you can know the truth. But if the truth is just a chemical interaction, they have already, in expecting us to follow their argument, they've already said that we are truth knowers, and they're more mystics and contradict themselves more than anything. But we don't want to take pot shots at them. Cheap shots never get you anywhere. There is something more in us or beyond us than interactions of matter. We know that, and we know that we are in control of that. We have atomic bombs. We can take matter and we can turn it into energy. People who really know, like great magicians, can take energy and condense it into matter, but that's quite another thing. That's the stuff of dreams to most people. Physical science has theories for this, replete with a whole big family of quirks and bozos and things like that, to indicate this is what reality is made of. Mysticism has an elaborate view of things, but it's much simpler. It's much more direct, and it's based on observation. And it it's verifiable just as much as science is verifiable. In fact, the mystic would say that you don't really know anything about matter unless you could make something like that chair disappear there and reappear there, and do it in front of a camera so that you're not fooling anybody with hypnosis or anything like that. Then you know something about the constitution of matter. We know that there's something beyond the interactions of matter by observation. And seers, that is trained clairvoyants who apply their clairvoyance scientifically, claim that interpenetrating the solids, liquids, and gases are 4 other physical states. They are called the 4 ethers. And they are what does energy and what does vital growth and what propagates things from the higher worlds into the physical world. And the seers or the spiritual scientists claim that it is something that is verifiable, something that you can test and see for yourself. They claim that it is part of the physical world because even light is subject to gravity, and gravity is one of the principal qualities of the physical world. It's physical. It's affected physically. And incidentally, Max Heindel said that light was subject to gravity several years before it was said by Einstein. So mysticism has always been in the lead and probably always will be in the lead. Now, as we said earlier, the Rosicrucian philosophy is corroborated by many, many observations and tests and things like that. Now, these etheric states of being, which we're going to spend the entire week on, all 10 talks, are the stuff of energy and of vitality. We experience them, and the more that we know about them, the more we can prove to ourselves their existence, even if we can't see them. And when we understand them and how the principles work in the etheric subdivision of the physical plane, we can apply them to our lives so that we have more efficient ways of living, better ways of living, more enjoyable ways of living. But if we think about the human experience, if we think about our life every day, it's very clear that matter and energy are not enough to describe what a human being is and what a human being experiences. We have emotions, we have feelings, we have desires, we have passions, we have moods. Plants and animals don't have them. Plants and minerals don't have them. It's fairly easy to see, and you can even do tests on it. However, animals do. And if we look at animals and humans compared to the minerals and plants, animals and humans are detached from the physical, from at least the mineral physical. Birds fly, antelope run, and human beings swim and do a whole number of things. So what we're saying is that there's something different about beings that are capable of desire. We move, and we move with rationale. A cat chases a mouse because it's hungry, and it has motivation. And so we have an existence that is a motivational existence, something that we feel in our being, something that drives the vitality. And this, the seers of the Rosicrucian order and other seers of all different types see that we are possessed of what is called a desire body, Some people call it an astral body, but that distinction isn't always made clear. What part of the astral body is desire and what part of it is etheric, but that's getting too technical. Again, for the seers, this is a matter of perception. The journey of 1,000 miles, at least from the Rosicrucian point of view, is not a blind journey. It is every step of the way we do what we do, every step that we take is not made with blind faith, but because we know what we're doing. It isn't a matter of empty belief. So, we have a desire body that interpenetrates the physical and etheric bodies. Now, the desire world is a different world from the physical world. It has its own laws, and the emotions have a logic that is all their own. Poets understand that, some psychologists understand that, but it is a totally different and separate world. There are interactions, but they are not mechanical interactions. There is a resonance between the world. When we're talking about the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, the unity of the universal spirit goes vertically through all of the different worlds, and there is a communication through them, but it's more of a resonant impingement or something like that. It's hard to put those things into words. So, we and the animals have experienced emotions long enough to have created a body made of emotions and feelings. Each person has a different desire body according to the types of feelings they have learned to use and that they have exercised in their being. And some people have desire world clairvoyance, which is altogether different than physical vision and which is altogether different than etheric vision. It's desire world clairvoyance. And this means that they are seeing the emotions of someone else through their own emotions. Now, this presents a problem. It presents a problem on every plane. We know in the physical plane that physicists say that you can't measure anything without interfering with what you're measuring by the measurement itself. And the same thing is true, especially true with desire world perception, because if you have a desire nature that is not objective, that is not clear, that is not true, when you're looking in the desire world, you're too likely to be seeing your own desires in someone else. There's the classic statement of saying, well, somebody's saying, that person has snakes in their aura, when really the snakes are not in that person's aura, it's in your own aura because of the kinds of desires of that type that you have. Now we could talk about the desire world and all of the different regions and all the different qualities of the desire world, and I think last year we spent about 12 talks in that. And it was a fun time, and we still just barely scratched the surface, but we want to move on from that. We want to understand that as fabulous and wonderful as the desire body is and all the things that we can do with motivation. There was a few years ago, there was a young man that used to play football for Wisconsin, and he got onto a pro team, and on that pro team he was in a Super Bowl, I believe, and he had so much desire that when he pushed off with his feet, he broke his own leg. It went snap. And you heard it through all of it. It was on television. You heard the crack on television, and you could hear it throughout the stadium. And desire is like that. It's much, much more powerful than kinetic energy or even than electrical energy. As we're going up through the planes and getting a broader and broader view of the cosmos, we are seeing something that is much more subtle. Each world that we go to is more subtle than the world before, and each has much more power because it's close to the universal spirit. It becomes almost an asymptote that approaches infinity, so that by the time you get to the highest spiritual worlds, they're so subtle that they're hardly knowable, but at the same time they're ultimately powerful. Of course, there are all sorts of things about that you can't get into, because I get greedy. I'm sorry, it's one of my faults. There are a lot of things that in the process of doing a talk, it's like playing one of those great big organs where you can play with your feet and both of your hands, and you can pull these stops all at the same time, and then things come to you that you want to say that would be perfect things to say, but they don't fit in, so you don't do it anyway. If we look at what we've looked at so far, does this describe the human experience? It does a better job, but it certainly doesn't describe it all. We're not animals. We're called rational animals because that's what separates us. We can think. And with our thoughts, we can control our desires, and we can control everything all the way down to the physical plane. So, we have the experience of thought. And the laws of thought are not the same as the laws of emotion and desire. It is with thought that we understand the nature of desire, and sometimes all those devious machinations that we make beneath the surface. With thought we can understand them, and we can understand what's going on, and we can correct. We can correct our motivations, we can control our motivations. It's not easy, but we can do it. And so we're saying that as well as having a physical body, a lively, vital, etheric body, a desire body of feeling and emotion and motivation, we also have a mind that we can think things through. And when we think things through, we can find what is beneath all of the other outward manifestations of the Spirit. The world of thought is another big jump. Just like the jump from the physical world with the etheric and chemical subdivisions to the desire world was a great jump. There is a great leap from the world of emotion to the world of thought. And the world of thought has within it a major division. A major division that divides the cosmos as far as human experience is concerned. It's sort of like a continental divide of the spiritual consciousness, or of the consciousness of human beings altogether. On one side of the continental divide are the concrete realms. Concrete thoughts which have beginnings and ends, and which are definite. They're measurable in one way or another. On the other side of the continental divide, we have abstract thought and all of the higher spiritual worlds. Abstract or ideational thought is universal. It has principles, and those principles have internal structure and limitations, as we find in formulae that describe them. But they are universal. They are without end. If you take an idea, that idea extends as far as the creation extends. The truth is like that. A principle of truth is like that. So, we have a concrete mind in which we can think definite thoughts. And those definite thoughts can strike our desire nature and motivate us to do something. Our desire nature puts the etheric part of our body into action. We're not like physics says, where you're just a lump that sits there, and if something moves you, you move until you've run out of energy. We can start and we can stop whenever we want. And it is done through this train of causal consciousness, from the spirit working through thought, emotion, energy, and finalizing things in the physical. The physical is where things are finalized. It's the proving ground. It's the limitations are so stringent here in this physical world that if you can carry a spiritual impulse all the way into the physical and prove it in the physical, you really know it. So this is it's not only a proving ground, it's our kindergarten. You know, like the things that we learn here the objectivity that we learn here in a very simple way, when we are able to transplant that to the higher worlds, we have a wonderful, wonderful kind of objectivity being waken up. Now, I'm getting tired, and this is, we're already at 1 hour, and I've still got a half a page of notes here, so I'm going to move along a little faster than intended. There are ideas in the region of ideational thoughts. There are ideas of pure form, mathematical ideas. There are ideas of life that reflect into the world as the vitality of this world. And there are ideas of emotional sentience. And we're in our inner constitution at the place where the abstract mind impinges or touches exactly on the concrete mind, which is the center of our being. There is one idea that is more important than all of the other ideas. And that is the idea of a being. In the worlds of pure spirit, it is spirit. Spirit is. You can't say anything more about it. A spirit is when it has been objectified. Thus, the one idea that is central is the idea of a spirit, and it doesn't make any difference if that spirit is God or if it is ourself. It is precisely as Christ says in the Gospels, "Know ye not that that is written that ye are gods?" And so what we're saying is that the reality is that God is an idea. Ourself is an idea, but they are a divinely, spiritually conceived idea. And that idea reflects everything in the transcendent realms of spirit that go beyond even thought. And that is what we call a self. Some people call it the spiritual ego. There are different names for it. But it is our true being. This is the truth knower. The truth knower knows by intuition. It's in touch with the spirit that is within everything. It is in touch with the spirit that creates everything and that works through everything. And in that way, being a truth knower, it is a knower of itself. And so when we know the truth of something, we have an intuitive internal apperception of the connection of the spirit with manifest reality. Now that self is itself, that idea is a precipitation from yet higher spiritual realms. We'll talk just a very little bit about them. The principles or the ideas that are truths, including the truth knower, are part of a truth that is total. A truth that is beyond the principles, that is beyond logic. If any of you are mathematical buffs or are logical buffs, you know about the incompleteness theorem of Gödel. That the incompleteness theory says that it's provable. It's provable by symbolic logic that any system that is logically consistent cannot contain the whole truth. That there is truth that is beyond any logical system, and that truth is not capable in total of being put within a logical system. This is when Christ in St. John's Gospel says, I am the truth. He is speaking from that realm of pure, irrefragable, unbreakable truth, which is sometimes called the crystallium. It's just pure rock of light and truth. That in itself, the life spirit, it is called, is an outward expression of the divine spirit. And the divine spirit is so subtle that it is invisible. Some people associate that with darkness, but really the best is invisibility. So that even very high seers, when speaking of the divine spirit, say that it's not something they can penetrate. It's so subtle that it doesn't weaken its infinite power by having anything manifest like the light. But it is known through the reflection of the light through the life spirit. This is the will to be. So, within all of this, all of these vehicles, all of us, every time we assert willpower, we're asserting the divine spirit. Every time we ideate, we're expressing our true self. And so, quotaneously, in our entire being, from the physical all the way to the divine being, we are evolving. And right now, we are preoccupied with physical matter, and it's important that we carry things out, because it isn't going to be here for long. Come and get it while you can, because it won't be here for long. And you make hay when the sun shines. And it's important, the preoccupation of matter that we have now is important, so that we learn our lessons and get as much as we can here, but we don't want to be attached to it. We want to take the next step. We want to take the essence of what we have learned here and carry it into our spiritual being. And so that the whole cosmos can move forward. And that is what taking the next step is all about. And it means following Christ. When the earth is dissolved, we follow Christ and we are carried into our next state of being. Even that is far from being the end, but you take it one step at a time. And so taking that next step is what these talks are going to be all about for this week. And that's all I have to say for tonight, except that all together, let's say the Rosicrucian student's prayer. O God, increase our love for Thee, so that we may serve Thee better from day to day. Let the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in Thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Yeah.
Name of the physicist that had the system.
He was a mathematical logician, Kurt Gödel. He was very close friends. They were both at Princeton University together. He and Einstein were close friends. As far as I'm concerned, what he said is much more important than what Einstein said. There's a lovely book called Gödel, Escher, Bach. If you want to learn how to do symbolic logic and work your way to understanding that principle, it's a wonderful book. It's a thick book, but it's fun. It's very well written. I forget the name of the man who...
Gödel, Escher, Bach?
What? Gödel, Escher, Bach. It takes those impossible paintings by Escher and the contrapuntal music of Bach, which we're going to hear some of right now. Jonah is going to play for us. If you really don't want to, you don't have to.
No,
But
I'll play it.
Good. Good.
I don't want to like perform though.
What?
I'll just play some background.
Okay. Yeah, by the way, this is a young man that I like very much. His name is Jonah Burns, only now he goes by Shiloh Jackson with one of those phonetic spellings.
Phonetic, yes.
Huh?
That's right. It's phonetic.
Yeah. See, there's a method to my madness. I get to sit next to Jenna while you play.
No, I don't want to.
Would you? Well, if you want to sit.
Yeah, I just want to sit and play.
Carol, you're surrendering your chair, Carol. He's going to use the chair for playing music.
Let's get one away and sing one or something.
Yeah, that would be fine. Jonah rowed the boat ashore, hallelujah.
We'll circle the other. Yeah, that's okay.